I know I gave her your information, so she needs some letter signed by the principal of the school. So she's gonna call you. Um, If you don't hear from her tomorrow, let me know. I'll give you her number. These people drag their feet. And then she got mad at me today and said, "You're not the only one I'm working with." So um, I'll talk to you soon. I got to jump on a conference call tonight. Hi,
Hi.
Deborah. I'm Mike. How are you?
Hi, Mike.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
We're the only two on right now, so it seems that people jump on a couple minutes late usually. So I know some people are coming, but are you in Chicago?
I'm actually right now, I'm in Austin, Texas.
Oh, I love Austin. What a great town.
I used to like it more than I do now, but
Yeah. I bet it's hot down there, huh?
there's a lot going on. This whole pandemic thing and how
Yeah.
they're handling it. And I mean,
I think everybody's pretty frustrated at this point, right?
I just don't agree with a lot of it, what's happening.
Right, right.
You know, from the beginning, I thought we should never have shut down.
I agree. I agree.
hmm And now I belong to this club online. It's a neighborhood association in Austin. It's called Next Door. And they're just telling people on Next Door, hey, if you think you have it, just stay home because, you know, just a it's just another way people can opt out of working.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I have it. I gotta stay home.
So, Aaron, how are you?
Doing good. How about you?
Good, good. Good to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Yeah. So we were just talking about how easy it is for people not to go to work in some places because of the pandemic,
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
just to stay home and
I'm
not,
sick. Okay, I have to stay home.
it's a
Yeah,
good excuse not to pay rent, right?
Good excuse
yeah,
not to do anything. Let's just go to the beach.
Yeah.
yeah. No, I feel that. What do you guys do for work? Are you guys like full time real estate, or do you guys have like W-2 jobs? Or
I'm full-time real estate.
Yeah. I uh
nice.
I I coach and train. So,
Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
How about you?
I'm an accountant, so I'm a CPA, and I'm like starting to like get into like the real estate niche with taxes, and I just bought my first property here,
Okay.
in December, and then this is my buddy here, Alex.
Okay.
So coming full circle. What's up, Alex?
Alex, how you doing? Welcome. Are you guys in Chicago?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm in Chicago, and Alex is just finishing up a rehab at his first place.
Hey guys.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good.
So you were just talking. I'm sorry, I just joined a minute later.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, we were just kind of jaw-jacking about, the pandemic and different places and what we did for a living in that. So, hi, Carl. Welcome. Tony, nice to see you.
Hi, Mike.
How are you?
Great.
Good, good. Is that a Harley shirt you have on there, Tony?
Yeah, I was outside weeding today. It was like 95 degrees, so I had to have a light colored shirt on.
Boy, I'll tell you what, it was hot here and it started storming tonight. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, really?
Thundering and lightning, like.
Huh.
One
Are
thing
you in-
about, go ahead,
are you-
Deborah. Sorry.
Are you in Chicago, Mike?
Yes, I am. I'm in the
Yeah.
south suburbs. Yeah.
Okay.
One thing about Carl, though, look at him. He's always got that smile on his face, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's by design.
Yeah. Nice job.
I don't want to show you what kind of shirt I'm wearing, guys.
No. I figured we wait a couple more minutes. Hey, is that Carl from Peoria coming, Tony?
I sent him the link in a text about 15, 20 minutes ago, and he confirmed he was going to do it. Him and
Okay.
we had a pre-Zoom yesterday just to get it going, and his son got him, all hooked up on it. So
Oh, good, good.
a pre-Zoom meeting.
Yeah. Okay. There he is now. Tom, how are you? Welcome.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Carl, can you hear us? Looks like you're connecting.
Connecting to audio.
Yeah. There we go.
Are you talking to me, Mike? Carl Moose?
No, there's another Carl on the line.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So, figure we just wait a couple more minutes here because people generally are a little late. So good to see everybody tonight. Carl, can you hear us yet? Carl from Peoria. Okay.
He's muted.
He is muted, I know, and his video's off too. So
Also-
Carl, if you can hear us, you can unclick that video and that audio if you want.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there he
Yes,
is.
there you are.
Oh, okay. I'm
How's it
still trying
going?
to get the... Okay.
Good, good. All right, guys, let me get us started here. I'm going to mute everybody until we open it up for discussion. There was an echo there, so I want to start with a quote tonight, and it was kind of interesting. This is a quote by Brandon Bacard, and Brandon Bacard is one of the world's leading high performance coaches that's in the marketplace today. And he says, doubt increases with inaction, and clarity reveals itself in momentum. Growth comes from progress. For all of these reasons, begin. So, it's really clear that if we sit around and do nothing, nothing's going to happen. But until we start to move or start to make a change or do something different, that's when things really start to change for us. So I want to know from you guys tonight, as we open this up for discussion and we start talking about things, are you clear on what you're trying to accomplish? You know, I know some of us are probably real estate investors. Some of us might be property managers. Are you clear with what you're trying to accomplish in your business, in your personal life? Not just accomplish with goals, but what are you trying to achieve short term as well as long term? Once you have clarity and you have a good vision, it becomes natural effect to be able to go after those things and try and accomplish them. I was on a coaching call with a client today, and we got into the call, and it was an initial call with her. And one of the things I do when I do an initial call with somebody is I'll get on for an hour to an hour and a half with them and try and get some direction and figure out where we're going to go in a coaching relationship. And we got talking, and she was talking about 20 different things that she wanted to accomplish and do and achieve. And I asked her, I said, can I ask you a question? Would it be okay with you if I tried to help you clarify some of this? And she said, yeah, you know, I would love to. But here's the things that we narrowed it down to. We narrowed it down to her developing a life of balance in her current job. She works a 9-to-5 job. She's a single mom. She's got 3 young boys at home, and her life is just chaotic, and it's out of control, right? And so what I said is, how do we work to narrow that down so that you can live a more effective and balanced lifestyle? See, because I think a lot of times in our lives, we get crazy doing a lot of things, and we don't have that margin. We don't have that time to sit back and think. One of the things I talked to her about was there's a book that's out. It's called The E-Myth, and I don't know if anybody's read it, but it's by a guy by the name of Michael Gerber. And he talks in that book about we don't spend enough time working on our business. We spend way too much time working in our business. And most people go into business, they become a technician, you know, and a couple examples are that a carpenter would be better off going and opening a veterinarian's office versus opening a general contracting business, because in the general contracting business, he'd work on his business way too much versus if he was opened a veterinarian's clinic, he'd have to work on the business because he didn't know how to do that. The second thing that we talked about was we began to develop a business model around her real estate investment business. See, what she was starting to discover was that what she wanted to create a legacy for her children. And that legacy went around not just financial, but the ability to be able to, for her children and her grandchildren to go, boy, my grandmother, my mom was really focused. She knew what she wanted, and she did things and put things in order to get those. The third thing that we talked about was she wants to be able to coach others and help other people. And how does she get to that point in her life? And then she said that she wanted to retire early. And, you know, I think everybody's opinion of retiring early is different, right? Somebody might be 20 years old and say they want to retire at 40, and somebody might be 40 and say they want to retire at 60. So that, you know, that all becomes perspective. But what we were able to do was we were able to break these 20 different things down, this chaotic conversation that she was having in her mind, and get clear about what she wanted to achieve. Then where we started to go on the call was we started to go to the place of what's her why? Why does she want to achieve what she wants to achieve? And I think that's where the clarity comes in for each of us. Until we truly know what our why is, can we get clear on it? But once we get clear on it, then we can start to visualize. So here's one of the suggestions I made to her, because here she said, I don't have enough time in the day to do everything that I want to do. So we started to talk about what her daily schedule was like and what time she got up in the morning and what her life was like. And the thing that I try to do with people around coaching is I try to help them live a more balanced life, but spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally, and financially. I think financially comes last because it's a direct result of all the other things before it. So I suggested, if you got up 30 minutes earlier every day and you got up at 5 o'clock instead of 5:30, that would give you, that 30 minutes a day gives you an extra 15 hours a month. And over a course of a year, that's 180 hours a year. That's an incredible number when you think about it. What could you do with an extra 180 hours a year? How could you educate yourself a little bit more? How much more productive could you be? Could you research properties more? Could you think about your business more? Could you plan and strategize a little bit more? So question is, who could use a little bit more time, and what's your why? So as we get into discussions tonight, and what I'd like to do is, this is a pretty new group here tonight. What I'd like to do is we'll kind of go around and I'll call on people and I'd like you guys to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, what your business looks like, what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to achieve the first time around. Maybe go for a minute or so. And then the second time around, let's talk about your goals and what you want to accomplish and kind of build from there. If anybody, and then, when the third time around, what we'll do is if anybody has any issues or challenges that they want to talk about. One time we were on one of these calls and somebody was talking about evictions, and another time somebody was talking about how we create a lease. So, what is your objective? What are you trying to accomplish? And if we can help you do that, we can talk through some of that. So Deborah, would you like to go first? And just unmute yourself and then mute yourself back again. So.
Okay, sure. My name's Deborah. I have 2 locations. I'm back and forth between Chicago and Austin, Texas. I've been in real estate forever, ownership and operations, multifamily, commercial, hotels, strip centers. And what I want to accomplish now, since I've had this real estate many years, I want to trade my building in Chicago for something else that's going to be less management intensive. But I have a lot of expertise in management and operations.
Great. Well, glad you're here. It's nice to meet you. And hope that, maybe we can help give you a little direction or guidance. What kind of building in Chicago do you have that you're trying to trade?
It's a multifamily, a commercial building.
All multifamily, or is it mixed use?
It's all multifamily, but there's a double parking lot. So it's got quite a few parking spaces too that I lease out to the neighborhood.
How many units is the building?
62, and the parking lot is 51.
Wow. Okay. Good. So it's a good sized property. Have you owned that for a while?
Yes.
Okay. So you've probably taken some depreciation and it's time to move on?
Yeah, there's something else that I want to do now.
Okay.
I can talk a little bit more about that later, but.
Okay, good. Well, glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Aaron, you want to go next?
So I'm Aaron. I'm actually originally from Minnesota, moved to Chicago about 2.5 years ago to kind of start off. I graduated from college in 2017 and then just slowly started saving money. And I just got my first property here in Chicago in the Irving Park neighborhood. It's a 4-flat, 3 legal units, and then a ground floor unit, which I'm occupying. So I'm kind of doing like the house hack. And then as for goals, I kind of want to like continue to grow and scale and stuff like that in multifamily, whether it's here or kind of long distance investing. Because I like Chicago, but the whole like the market, and there's just other better places to invest than Chicago that you can get a little bit more like bang for your buck, I feel like.
Yeah, I would agree with that. When I first started investing in multifamily, one of the things I bought my first property in Zion, north of Chicago, and I learned very quickly I wasn't going to make any money here. So the next one I bought in Indiana, had a big footprint in Dallas and the Ohio Valley. So
Oh,
there
nice.
were definitely other places to make money. So
Yeah, no, that's for sure. But
Mark.
it's a good place to start and kind of learn the ropes of landlording too. So,
yeah, yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you're here.
yes, thank you.
How about you, Tom? You want to go next?
Sure. So I was on the passive side for a while, just doing passive investing. And then about 2 years ago, started purchasing properties here in Chicago. So I have a 25 unit portfolio across different neighborhoods. And it's just been getting more and more active. We now flip on the north side. So Aaron mentioned Irving Park, like that's a big one for us. I'm located in Jeff Park, so we do like Norwood Park, Jeff Park, Avondale, Irving, all the way east to like the Bowmanvilles of the area of the neighborhoods. So yeah, that's what we're doing now. Looking to scale. I still have a W-2 job. Looking to say, all right, if I put that 40 hours on the table, what would it look like? What does that create as far as replicating the income and how can we do that?
Yeah, good for you. When you're flipping, are you flipping all small multifamilies? And I talk multifamily like 2 to 4 unit, 2 to 5 unit.
We're not, just because it's so we've done a few of those, but it's mostly single families, and our bread and butter is like take like a 1,700 square foot home in North Center or in Irving Park, and usually like a builder will come in, knock it down, put up the 3,400 square foot McMansion. We'll come in, leave the existing square footage, and do it to the nines though. So like same finishes, but now like the end buyer can get in at like 600-700K as opposed to like the 1.4.
Okay.
So we try, like on the purchase side, we're like competing with builders a lot, but then on the exit side, there's not a lot of products of what we're selling. Like we found like it's a very hot product because there's not a lot of inventory like that.
So you found yourself a little niche that you can play in and capitalize in.
Yeah, and then just by dumb luck, like a lot of these builders kind of went away with COVID, right? Like they got real skittish, and so all of a sudden, like competition kind of went down too. So it's been good. There's obviously a lot of risk there still. Like even though we're not at 1.2, having a bigger, you can't rent that thing out and make money if the market turns on you. Like you still have to have a very healthy cushion.
So are you saying because of the pandemic that the builders on the street have kind of pulled back from doing those tear downs and building the big ones?
At least in my little like sector here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's kind of a neighborhood by neighborhood evaluation,
Yeah, I'd agree. And it makes sense, right? Because their timeline's more like 12, 15 months where we're like 6. So we can be a little bit more aggressive.
Right, right. All right, well, good. I'm glad you're here. Tony, you came back. Good to see you again.
Here I am. Can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, so my wife and I started in the single family homes in the Detroit area in 1995 when we had our first daughter. She worked at General Motors, and we decided, together that she would quit the job and we'd augment and supplement the income by buying single family homes and renting them out. So 25 years later, we're still doing it. I retired from my job in 2012, my regular job, and I'm doing some consulting and looking at maybe in the springtime getting into multifamily and starting a maintenance company up for the city that we're working in right now. So right now it's pretty much real estate full time for us.
Good for you. Glad you're here. I know that you have a lot to share and other people can certainly learn a lot from your experience and your knowledge. So Alex, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hi. My name is Alex. I also graduated in 2017, like Aaron. We went to the same college together, so in Peoria too. Funny enough. So I actually bought my first property, same type of thing as Aaron, house hacking in 2017, and it was a duplex in Logan Square. And I guess I did an FHA 203K loan, so there's a pretty big rehab with it. In the middle of the rehab, some kids broke in and started a fire, which pretty much burned the whole house down. So I'm going through like a complete gut rehab now. That should be done in about a month. And then at that point, I still have the real estate bug. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I've been brainstorming with Aaron about if we want to go somewhere else with our investments going forward, or if we want to keep trying to do another house hack. And yeah, Bradley was a school. So I've been kind of brainstorming on different ideas going forward. And I think I'll talk about goals more later, but I think we have a lot of different things we've been thinking about, and I've been thinking about just kind of where to go from here.
Great, great. Well, glad you're here. Nice to meet you.
Mhm.
Hopefully you'll learn a lot, and this has been a great event that we do. So I think people exchange ideas and get a lot from each other. So Moose, you'd be up next.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Good to meet you all. My name's Carl Moose. That's why Mike calls me Moose. I've been around for a while. I was a banker, financing apartment deals, and then got talked into buying properties. We owned about 22 properties at one point. I think we had about 750 tenants in Chicago. And I've moved out of that, just took some time off. Had a couple of big fires, which could have been a disaster. However, a guy I play hockey with, he and his father run a public adjusting company, which, for those of you that don't know what that is, public adjusters represent the property owner when they have a fire or flood or mold or whatever, when they have to make a claim. And these guys really came in and saved my life. They got about another 50% on my claim, which I would have totally got screwed. So fast forward, I've been now working with them for a couple of years, just getting the word out and networking with people that own property. Everything from single family homes to churches, big box, office, retail, whatever. So that's where I come into the equation. I'm a multifamily guy like you, Mike. All I did was multifamily, both on the lending side, property management, and purchase side. One of the reasons why I want to join this mastermind is just for anybody that's gets into a situation where they need an insurance adjuster. We've been doing it since 1974, and just in general, I come from the perspective of property management, property finance on the multifamily side. So I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with anybody in general, or if you ever find yourself in a situation, call us and we can advise you as far as what to do with regard to your insurance.
Okay.
I wish I knew you 1 year ago.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so funny because I do a lot of educational events, and invariably, half the people in the audience come up after the presentation and say, I didn't even know you guys existed. And the other half say, where were you a year ago when I could have used you? So,
Yeah.
But anyway, hopefully you won't need anybody in the future, but if you do, give me a call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an interesting niche in the marketplace, that's for sure. Carl, how are you? Welcome. If you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Carl. Okay. Hey, Carl, I don't know if you're trying to, if you don't want to chat but we'll come back around. So here's what I'd like to do now is, go back through and talk a little bit more about your goals, what you're trying to accomplish, why, what attracted you to be here tonight, and how you think this might be an asset to you and help you. So, just Deborah, if you want to start and talk a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish and how maybe, some ideas might help you get there.
Yeah, sure. I was hoping to talk to other owner operators about challenges that they're facing right now during this pandemic, and the challenge with our economy, and where they think things are going in the next year or so. That's one thing that I would like from this group and to exchange ideas, maybe, and learn more about the field. My goals, as I stated before, I want to do a 1031 exchange at some point within the next year with this property in Chicago. And I'm just worried about the whole environment in Chicago. And I belong to other activist groups that, well, they inform me about legislation. And it's sort of scary picture ongoing. All the bills being brought up about rent control, and during this crazy stuff we're in right now, all the things that are coming across, strong, that would affect landlords. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and I am still trying to figure out this whole 1031 exchange idea, because I want to do something else. I mean, I lived in Manhattan for a couple of years, attending a vegan culinary chefs program, and I want to teach people about healthy eating. I mean, I've made money in real estate, so this would be complete departure. And with the 1031 exchange, something that's less management intensive.
So when you do a 1031, that needs to be a like kind exchange, correct?
It does. It does.
So I'm hearing you say that, well, I'd like to, work in maybe in this vegan culinary arena, but you're saying you still would like to do some type of a real estate exchange into
Yeah.
another like kind building?
Like kind, or there are, I don't know if you want to call partnerships, where you can invest in certain entities that own and operate real estate, and that would categorize as a 1031 exchange.
Right, into a limited partnership or a passive, some type
Something.
of a passive investment.
Yeah, or maybe I could be on the board and not have to, go through the day-to-day mechanics of operations.
Yeah. So passive investing is always a great opportunity, right? Because you don't have to be part of the day-to-day management or the operations, and you find a good sponsor and get involved with a good sponsor, and it takes a lot of your headaches away.
Yeah, and you have to be careful who you trust here. I mean, you've got to do your research on where you're putting your money and who's operating it. So that's another consideration.
Right, right. So what else are you hearing about the Chicago? Are you hearing just specifically about the Chicago market, or on a state level or a federal level about some of these changes in these bills?
Both the state level and also Cook County.
Okay.
They're constantly coming up with different legislation, and the last one, it didn't pass, but it was basically giving tenants a 6-month reprieve on rent. And that was brought up by one of the aldermen, by actually 2 aldermen.
Right. And I don't see how, some of those people I think do own real estate too. And I don't see how they would be able to let a bill like that pass, because it really can stall the system. And as a result, I think there would be a lot more problems than what we're seeing right now as a result of the season that we're in.
I am not certain where it's going, to be honest with you. I never thought what's happening now would happen and continue the way it has. They're constantly talking about rent control in the city of Chicago.
Yeah.
And if you look at Seattle, look at that market, they implemented rent control, and it's really slowed things down dramatically.
Right. Right.
So I don't rule it out.
Yeah. Well, lately, I think when we look at things, we can't rule much out. So, Um, I think it's a matter of staying in front of it, and you just have to be aware of what's going on and stay in front of it the best you can.
And I think certain properties will fare better than others in a rent control environment. So, it's Class A properties that
Right.
need to increase their rents substantially are not going to fare well in a rent control environment.
Right.
More
Right.
Class B, Class C properties might do okay. But again, the market is impeded when you implement rent control.
Yep. Yeah. It's a mess in some of the markets like that. Like New York can be a real mess. So,
New York doesn't have rent control. It's been grandfathered out now. There's just a few left, but
yeah.
it's not there any longer. It's in Seattle and California. Not sure if there's any place else, but there may be.
New York should have been a lesson for people, I think,
Thank
because
you.
of the way it was for so long, So, Aaron, you want to go next?
Yeah, I don't know, kind of just in terms of goals. I mean, I'm ultimately trying to scale up into probably stay in the multifamily niche. Again, whether it's in Chicago or elsewhere, kind of indifferent as to where that is, and kind of just adapt my skill set as I'm starting to be a landlord and all that, whether it's dealing with tenants or contractors. Also, just kind of what Deborah was saying with exchanging ideas and learning more about the field. I also kind of want to just be able to like network with people and expand my network in Chicago, and that's probably a good start there.
Yeah. It's if you stay in a specific marketplace or in a specific product place, Chicago's a good market. So, especially if you carve yourself out a niche and work in that direction, right? So.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, good. The 4-unit that you bought now, I
Yep.
just had I did a podcast last week that will air, I think, in 2 weeks on my Insider Secrets show. And the guy he invests only in small multifamily and 2 to 4 unit properties, 2 to 5 unit properties. And he does that because it's such an easier entry point, right, to get into. And he owns, I want to say, he owns 154 units, all on the West Coast. And it's been a real interest. It was a real interesting call with him. So, there again, it's just one of those niche places that somebody is working really well. So if you get really good at what you do, you find that place, right?
Yeah, 150 is a lot. I don't want it to be like a job or anything. I kind of want to ultimately move away from my W-2 job or whatever future W-2 job I have too, and maybe get into real estate full time as well. But
right,
certainly not at that point yet, but hope to be.
Yeah, get out of your job. It's about short-term cash flow and long-term wealth, right? And where do you find that happy balance in the product that you buy? So
agreed. Yeah.
So, Tom?
Sure. So really trying to figure out what the next step is for me, because I don't want to go buy 25 more units the way I have them right now. They're, my biggest unit is just a 6-unit. So there's a lot of single families, a lot of duplexes, and they're fine. They're all individually like good investments, but it's not like my position right now is not very scalable. So looking at, okay, do we offload some of these and do we go after something bigger? And then how does that change the dynamics of, who you're competing against, how you're acquiring leads? Like the world changes a little bit there.
Right.
And then if I do make the jump in and leave the job, okay, well, how do we subsequent some of that income? How do we look to actually, right now I'm still paying property management because I have the W-2 job. So I'm giving up that 8%, and it starts adding up, right? Like without the work orders, it's probably just 30 grand just in percentages. Then if we continue doing the flips, like do I get a license just to capitalize on that on the front and the back end? Like there's a lot of different ways you can slice it. And then you start thinking about all of them and you're like, all right, well, settle down, man. Like figure out what the hell you actually want to do. Right. So I'm at that kind of exploratory of what should that next step be? Because the path like to this point has been fine, but it's not, I don't want to be a guy who owns 50 single family homes. Like just doesn't, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So here's a couple thoughts, right? So one might be, can you get clear on what it would take for you to leave your job? Because it sounds like you'd like to leave your day job and would like to be able to be in real estate more full time. And so if you can get clear yourself on what it'll take for you to be able to do that, that's a first place to start. And then you can kind of back into, well, what would it take? I don't want to own 50 single family homes. I remember when I first became an investor, I went to an investor meeting and I sat next to this guy and we had this conversation and he owned 200 single family homes. And I thought, wow, that must be incredible, right? But a few years later, as I started to get into investing myself a little bit more, I always remembered that guy and I thought, man, he must be a little loose upstairs because that's a lot of single family homes to own. And the one thing I like about multifamily is you have economies of scale, you have it more under one roof. I'd rather own 24 units than 100 single families, right? So I understand what you're saying there. The thing that you said, what if you pulled the property management in yourself and you did that yourself and paid yourself that percentage, right? There's part of the way that you can get out of your day job. And then the other thing is, can you pick up any third party management for other property owners?
Yep. Yeah, that all makes sense. And going back to the first part too, one of the biggest things, the other big difference is on a single family home, you increase the rent $100. Cool. You make an extra $1,200 a year. Great. Nothing to sneeze at. But when you do that in the multifamily and it gets divided by the cap rate, like everything's just exponential. And I noted, I didn't fully appreciate this until on my 6 unit, my taxes got lowered tremendously. They got lowered like $5,000. And even at an 8 cap, that's like 60 grand in net worth right there, as opposed to just saving $5,000 a year. It's like, oh shit. Like that's why everyone's talking about these multifamilies, like you squeeze out every dollar and it gets amplified by 10, 12, whatever, X rate you want to use.
Yeah. That's why there's
much
a
more
lot.
Scalable.
Say it again.
It's much more scalable. It's much
Right.
more, yeah.
Right. That's why it's that economies of scale, and it's a more powerful experience for your investment. So maybe one of the things that you start to look at, just throw an idea out there, is that you could start buying multifamilies, right? And maybe if you were playing Monopoly, right? We buy 4 houses, put them on boardwalk, cash them in, buy 4 hotels, cash them in, buy a bigger building. So if you played that kind of game with your investment game, what would it look like in 5 to 10 years from now?
Yeah. I mean, the main difference is, yes, agreed 100%. But then, okay, now I need to have those relationships as opposed to the relationships I have now from the acquisition side, right? The game needs to change a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is very doable, but like it's another step.
Yeah. So that comes, I think, over time, education, learning. One thing I always talk to people about too is build your network. The more people you know, the smarter that makes you. So, all right, good. Tony, how about you?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, hey, Dave, Tom, one of the things that my wife and I went through for about 20 years, I retired from the Department of Defense. I wanted to stay there and get my retirement. And she always tried to convince me to quit my job, and just do real estate. And oddly enough, once I retired, it was like we made more than enough money from the real estate that I could have, in fact, done it 10 or 12 years ago. It was just that I was always brought up, work your 25 years, get your pension, health care, and one of those things. But it was making that leap, especially with 4 small kids. But looking back, I wish I would have listened to her advice years ago and just quit my W-2 job and got into real estate, because it more than made up for itself. Just for what it's worth, I went through the exact same thing, I can appreciate that completely.
No, appreciate it. I got 4 little ones as well, so
Yeah.
similar.
You
Similar.
know, so, Mike, to get to one of the questions about goals, one of the things I'm keeping track of, my wife and I are looking at the springtime to maybe launch another assault because either buy a bunch of more single family, get into the multifamily, because what I'm keeping track of are these forbearance agreements. I think this is something that's going under the radar, is that we had, I don't know, 6, 8 of our lenders, want me to do forbearance agreements on some of our mortgages. And I took up on 3 of them because essentially it just pushed it out 3 to 6 months. But some of the other lenders wanted to essentially give me a 6-month forbearance with a balloon at the end of 6 months. And what's happening is a lot of people are taking those and they're not reading the fine print. And what I think is going to happen, at least talking to some of the guys here in the Detroit area, and I'm not sure Detroit's unique in this situation, was that when these forbearance agreements come due in the November timeframe, people are not going to be able to pay them. They didn't read the fine print. They thought they were going to get this where it pushed on to the end, but in fact, most lenders are just giving you a 6-month forbearance with a balloon in 6 months, and people are not going to be able to do that. So what I'm thinking, at least the guys I'm talking to in the Detroit area, it'll be a surge of foreclosures, come springtime. The market will be flooded. This is just what I'm thinking, because people are going to look at the short-term gains and not understand what they're getting. It's sort of like years ago in the Washington Mutual, those negative amortization loans, and people got in all sorts of trouble with them. They didn't understand what they got into, So I guess, my wife and I are really paying really close attention to the inventory in the Detroit area. And we're looking at, multifamilies, but I'll tell you, if the market gets saturated, which I'm thinking it may, we may just go head over heels and load up on a bunch of single families. So we're going to sort of take it, take I won't say a little operational pause, but going to be focusing real hard on these forbearance agreements and the impact on them. That's pretty much what I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but that's one of the things I'm concerned about on this end and look at it as a potential opportunity.
Yeah, I think the lenders in some cases do an injustice to the borrower because they don't explain that thoroughly to them when they put that forbearance in place, right? And the borrower says, well, this is great because I don't have to pay my mortgage payment for a couple months. And it's fine if the lender puts it on the back of the loan, but when the lender wants that balloon payment in 90 or 180 days, now that borrower, it goes, well, I didn't know that was part of it. So it doesn't solve any problem. It actually makes a problem greater. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here in the next, 6 months.
Do you guys think there's just like so much capital out there though that like there's not going to be all these great deals to scoop up? Like I agree with everything you said to me, but then like I also feel like there's just so much capital on the sidelines, people waiting that like the second things drop a little bit, it'll get scooped.
Yeah.
Maybe that's me being pessimistic from an advantageous investor standpoint.
Well, I think it depends on what product class, Tom.
Yeah, it's a very blanket statement I'm making, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I know my buddies that are, doing a lot of big multifamily stuff. There's not enough product. Everybody's, fighting for product right now. I have a buddy out of Irvine, California that they have a small group, and their model is they buy 150 to 250 units. And right now they're focused between Dallas and Charlotte. So if you went all the way, through Florida and up the coast, and there's very limited product on the market. So I think it becomes, what product class, right?
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of retail for people to buy. And I think if you can come up with some type of a retrofit for some of these retail facilities, there's opportunity there.
Yeah, on that point, I think like an opportunity too. I mean, I've thought about this for a while, but like all these like malls, for instance, or like strip centers, like there's not a lot of foot traffic to them in many cases. So I mean, just a thought is if you have like a developer or whatever, you could turn that retail space or whatever into apartments, like 150, 250 units, assuming the capital is like there, or it'd have to be a part of like a syndication or something.
Right. And the other thing you got to watch is the saturation rate, right? On those types of deals, like what's in the area, I think, I haven't looked lately at new build stuff and what markets have bared new build, but it's an interesting thought. So how about you, Alex?
Yeah, so I think my goals kind of align with what Tom and Aaron were saying. I'm right now particularly interested in 2 to 4 units because of the fact that I can get low down financing. I'm willing to house hack, and it's a quicker way to scale than trying to put 20% down on something else. But I think long term, I think my skill set lends to it too, is to scale more to apartments or larger units that are more, I guess you can do more of the appreciation factor by just raising rents or lowering expenses. And I'm a much more analytical person, so I think that would feed well into that. I definitely don't have the contacts or the even, I would say, experience yet to start doing something like that, but I think that that's where I would like to be at some point. But yeah, right now I'm focusing on house hacking, and then I think I'm also kind of considering getting an MBA, which I know is not particularly useful if I'm trying to retire early or anything, given the amount of costs. But I'm thinking that I could use that for developing those skills and how to raise money, how to be a good manager, how to deal with people. And I think it could also feed well in my current career. I work in consulting, so I think that regardless of whether or not I choose to leave my current job path full time, I can move into real estate, which I would like to do. I really like the process of interacting with all the different types of people and the contractors, the architects, all that. I think it's just super interesting. So either way, I think that I would like to scale at some point and then use that factor of having 20 units instead of 4 or something like that.
I think education is great. And, I would never tell anybody not to go get educated, right? Because I think the more we learn, the more we can do. The one thing with education is that the more we learn, the more we have to give away so that we can learn more. People have always asked me, how come you like real estate so much? It's like you're passionate about it. I say, I am passionate about it. And my reason around that is because it never gets old. There's always something new I could learn. And because of all of that knowledge, it's given me the ability to help other people and teach other people. For 75, 80% of my career, I've worked with other investors and, helping them build their portfolios and things like that. And that's what, that's just from all that continued education. So I think education is great, because you can always use it somewhere. So. And I think that, narrow your focus and stay building your network, getting educated on the real estate stuff so that you can execute. Because execution is so important, right? We can have these goals and these great plans, but unless we can pull the trigger on it and accomplish what we set out to do, it becomes a little more difficult. Sort of like, Deborah's talking about what she'd like to do, but she's not real clear yet. And it might take her a while to get real clear on how to go there or how to go to the next stage or what that looks like. And part of it, I think, is questioning about what's coming and should I really do this type of thing. But it doesn't happen overnight, right? So the more we learn, the more we plan it, the more the execution becomes natural then. So for all of us. So how about you, Carl? This is like playing Hollywood Squares. I love this.
Moose or the other Carl?
No, you. The other Carl left. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So listen, just really a great conversation. I mean, I get the benefit of hearing all of you speak. Just a couple of comments, Mike. I totally agree with you as far as education and, real estate is one of those things. It doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, what you've been through. If you can close a deal, you can get it done. No one's ever asked me, well, what fraternity were you in, or what degree do you have, or, tell me more about your background. You know what I mean? So that's one thing. And real estate is always changing. I mean, that's the thing that's really great about it. To your point, Deborah, what's next? Or what are these people going to do with these office buildings? Where it used to be, 8,000, average per employee. Now it's going to be, 16, 17, 18,000 with all the precautions and everything else per employee. So, that's the exciting thing about real estate. And, for you, there's a couple of, I think, younger guys, I'm excited for you guys. I mean, you guys are on the right track. I didn't buy my first building until I was 38 years old or something. And, you guys are on the right track. Take your own pace, set your course. Like Mike said, continue to learn from guys like Mike, and don't rush it. That was one of the big mistakes I made. The first building I bought was an 18-unit building. And I had the idea of, I'm going to make $100 more a month on 18 units, but when it ended up costing me $500 a door, in expenses that I didn't plan on, it almost sunk me. So, that's really, really critical, is really planning out and staying at your own course. And Tony, it's funny, I was one of the first 4 guys from Washington Mutual that came to Chicago. So yeah, I remember those negative AM and interest only, and then, your traditional and then accelerated payments. I was one of the first guys from the West Coast in Chicago selling those products. And yeah, I mean, people were all over it. Every 3 months they'd refinance because they were changing the programs, which was great for me because I was making my fees. But yeah, that's why Washington Mutual isn't around anymore, because they were doing loans like that. But, for me, I'm at a point, I'm almost 6 years old. I just enjoy being a resource for people. As far as networking, people that are in Chicago, please reach out to me. And Mike, I don't know if everybody has access to everybody else's email, but, for those of you that are looking to network, that's all I do. All I do is go to 3 or 4 events, when we're, live events, when we get back to it, 3 or 4 live events, sometimes 5 live events a week, just networking with property owners and bankers and realtors and people that own properties. So, I'd be more than happy to turn anybody that's interested onto my network because, the guys I work with, people I work with, are people that own a couple of units to guys that own 20,000 units. So, for me, I just enjoy being a resource and helping people however I can help them.
Yeah. Thanks, Carl. I'm glad you're here too. So, I did a podcast with Carl that's on my, on our YouTube channel, and, he talked a lot about that. So, and we have to have you back one of these days, Carl, to talk about goals and goal setting. So,
No problem, Mike. Anytime.
Yeah, you bet. So what I'd like to do is go around the last time and just throw out an issue, and I think that there's a couple of people that maybe have something, and ask the group what you're looking for. And let's see if we can come up with a couple of answers or a couple things that might be helpful, pointing you in a direction. And I put my information in the chat. If anybody else wants to share their information with each other, feel free to. So, Deborah, why don't you go first? I'm more excited about this than anything else right now, really.
Yeah, I guess a concern that I have right now is regarding evictions and what's going to take place in the next 6 months after July 31st, when the government assistance is no longer. Right now, there's a moratorium on evictions. I have a terrible situation with a tenant. I'm not going to get into all of that, but I'm not sure where that's all headed. They keep delaying the date. It's April, and it's May, and it's June. Now it's July 31st. And I fear that's going to go farther into the future. So selecting your tenants, and even with good selection, it could be difficult because of what the rumors are and the talk is, and the city's advocating. And so I would like to hear others' thoughts on that topic.
When you talk about selection, you mean tenant selection?
Tenant selection.
Okay. So what is I haven't listened to the latest lately about what the CARES Act is saying, but have they pushed the date out again?
Well, from Cook County and, Governor Pritzker is right in with all of it, and our mayor as well. They're pushing the date to file evictions into the future. And I had this eviction lined up, believe it or not, 2 days just after the COVID lockdown. And this guy has destroyed so much. I won't even get into all of it, but he's a nightmare. And now they're saying that even though I was there 2 days and this person would have been evicted, that there's no grandfathering anything in. We don't know when your time is coming. So I could be way in September. But they're not giving any dates, even though this situation's lingered for months.
So what's your lender telling you?
My lender doesn't know. No, there's no lender.
Okay. So you don't have a mortgage?
I wrote the mortgage and no,
Okay.
I paid
So-
off the bank.
Okay. All right. So, I think that the issue becomes is somebody else is dictating how you can do business. And that's the frustrating part of the problem, because it's tough to make decisions in this environment, right? So you have somebody who lives in a place and they don't pay rent because the CARES Act or the county or the governor said there's a moratorium on evictions right now. So if you can't pay your rent, don't worry about it for 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. And I've talked to a lot of people, and it appears that the rent collections are stronger than were anticipated. And I think because of that reason, they're still letting it float and pushing it out a little bit more. But until some decisions are made by other people, our hands are tied, right? Because you can't do anything as far as evicting that person.
No.
Yeah. Deborah, I have a similar situation. Unfortunately, I bought the building. It had all the 3 of the units had inherited tenants. 2 of them were very good, but the one makes up for the other 2. And I'm kind of struggling with that too. And Alex and I were kind of talking about this for a while. And I think the best strategy is probably just cash for keys or just abatement of rent and just saying, screw it. You're not acting in good faith. Just get out of my property. I'm not going to evict you. It's not going to go on your record. And that should hopefully be a good enough incentive. I haven't fully implemented that with my tenant yet, with that being said.
Here's something that we actually, my wife and I and one of our attorneys just talked this morning. Luckily with our properties, we only have one tenant that's not paying. And so what we decided to do is we just sued her for small claims, and depending on the amount, general civil. So it doesn't help you with getting the property back. But what it does happen, at least in the Detroit courts, they're allowing us to go and sue for small claims or general civil to get a lawsuit against them, sue them for a judgment, whatever the back rent is plus damages. And when we do it, we just go to the max, whether it's $6,500 or $25,000, and then show up in court and get a lawsuit against them, independent of the evictions, because we can evict. And we just ran that by one of our attorneys this morning. So we're filing papers on the one person to go ahead and file small claims and depending amount general civil, independent of the eviction process. Just something to, but again, you guys live in Cook County and I don't know what goes on in Chicago. It's crazy stuff there, but at least here, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's way better. I mean, at least you have some alternative.
Have you checked on that as an alternative, Deborah?
It's not allowed in Cook County.
This is Carl. It's been a while, since I've been in a situation where I had to get rid of some people. Obviously not this, but I have to imagine, and I just want to put this out there. I have to imagine that there's some attorneys out there that have figured something out and are because they're fee driven. I mean, they know this is an issue. I mean, I just would have to imagine that there's some attorney out there, at least in Chicago, that's figured out a way to help property owners. So I just want to put that out there. I don't know of any, and I don't even know if that is the case, but I know lawyers, they can get pretty creative, and if they can make a buck, they're going to do it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I do have an attorney, and he's checked into many different options to no avail. They just keep getting stricter and stricter with these rules. You know, we did have Sanford Kahn, he's an icon, and he got sued. He lost, I think, $30,000 in some lawsuits, and I'm not sure of all the circumstances regarding it, but they're trying to stifle anybody who stands up for the landlords.
Yeah. There's a real big difference, I think, there's Cook County, but then there's Chicago Cook County. And the difference between just Cook County versus Chicago Cook County are two different things, because Chicago Cook County is the worst. And it's so much worse than just, Cook County as a whole, although that still is the worst. I can remember getting an eviction in DuPage County, walking into court, getting it over with, and just saying, I can't believe I can't get these people out of this place in Chicago. So
Exactly.
yeah. And I'm sure that some of these attorneys that's their bread and butter, evictions, are frustrated right now with what's going on.
They are. I can tell you, because that's their livelihoods as well. And they're looking for any way out, and they're not finding it, because they keep whatever they find, filing a motion. Up next week you can no longer file motions, or you can no longer do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Tom, you have something?
Yeah, this is biggest challenge, right?
The challenge.
Yeah. I'd say, like, pivoting here, like I can't keep doing what I'm doing. So whether that be going to multifamily or actually operating my own units now, or both, like those are both new ventures for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, other people have done it. It's very doable, but it's not starting over, but it's a new venture.
Absolutely. Just have enough capital reserves for all these things, so that whatever comes along, you're going to have enough cushion to deal with it.
And I think it's all how you frame it too, Tom. It's the next rung on the ladder, or the next step up, right? If you look at it as a whole new venture, it might make it a little bit more difficult. But I remember and Carl taught about this years ago, making the transition from single family residential into multifamily residential. And I think what happens for people, and I know in my case, the first deal I bought was an 11 unit. And then the next one I bought was a 64 unit. And they got easier after that, right? So once you put the first one behind you, the rest of them become relatively easy. And so I don't know sometimes if it's just the apprehension of moving forward and taking that next step or that next leap, and kind of just having the faith that you're going to figure it out and kind of know how to do it, or if it truly becomes a fear that holds people back. The other thing that I would say about it is, take some time to, and I think as society, we don't do this today. People don't take enough time to sit back and think through what it looks like when you're done.
Mm-hmm.
We get so busy and we're so distracted between emails and cell phones and text messages and phone calls and work and everything else. When do you ever take any time for yourself just to be quiet and just think about your business and your strategy? Because it's about strategy, and then it becomes about execution.
Yeah.
Maybe finding like a partner, maybe like on the first deal, maybe whatever your new venture is, whatever way you opt to go, maybe finding like a partner for the first deal or two would maybe make you feel comfortable with your new path. and also just education. Back to like what Mike was talking about. I know you have 4 kids. I can't imagine that, especially during these times now. But what would it look like if you just woke up like half an hour earlier and spent like 30 minutes like each day kind of learning whatever you're interested in and all that.
Yep, that's both points. Good stuff.
Hey, do you have partners in what you're doing now?
I'm a single member LLC. I partner on the flips. I 50-50 partner with my GC. We're technically 2 different entities though. And on the rentals, I own those outright. And then I use third parties, but there's no like JV or
Okay.
general partnership.
All right. Okay. So it's pretty much just yourself, except for those one-off deals with your general contractor.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? You know, I don't know that we actually have helped either one of you guys at all, maybe other than the fact of just a little motivation and a little support. And sometimes I think that, especially in a time like this, and Deborah, I can sympathize with you, and I've been in that place where you can't get somebody out. And, you know, I had a woman in a rental unit one time that she knew the system so well. It took me 6 months to get her out. And I used what was that attorney you said, Cohen?
Transferred on.
Yeah, I used him and his firm. And it took us 6 months. The craziest thing. So I can sympathize with where you're at this point on that. And I think that what this time in our lives causes us is to be more patient, to learn patience, and to just kind of understand that this too will pass. We're just not sure when yet, right?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Alex, you were going to say something.
Oh, I don't want to go too long. If this was supposed to be ending at 8, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, you know, we kind of go at least a minimum of an hour and a little bit more. So don't worry about it. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I have a quick one. I have a kind of a good problem, I guess, with my with my house fire and all that. I might get a good refinance on the actual after construction costs. So I'm looking at what I can do in the next year or so after that, but my lender has been saying that I can't actually do another like FHA loan until a year from then, because I would be refinancing into an owner occupied loan for that house after I refinance the 203K. So I'm looking at trying to figure out whether or not I can do something else in the meantime and not have to wait until a year from now to buy another property, if that makes sense.
So you have equity in a property that you can't pull out because the lender won't let you refinance.
Well, I'll be able to refi probably in about 3 months from now, after the construction is complete. But then after that point, he said I would have to wait another year to buy another property, and I may have a lot of cash to be able to use on another property, even like a month or 2 later. And I'm trying to figure out how to not have to wait a whole year, which I know patience is a virtue, but I don't like having to kind of like hold that for too long.
So let me just ask, what type of, so he said you would have to wait because that's their lending requirements?
Essentially, if I were to yes, yeah. And I know one of the obvious paths would be to talk to more lenders. But I was thinking that might be the case if I refinance a new owner occupied mortgage and get like the lower interest rate financing and kind of stick with that for the refinance. I would have to wait 1 year from that point.
Yeah, because you've got to wait before you can qualify for an FHA, the different loan, right? I mean, you can go get other loans. It's just that one that you want, you can't get for a year, correct?
Yeah, so then I guess the other options would be to try to find another way to finance another property while I wait that year, if I have the like cash to do so. I'm not sure. I guess I'm trying to avoid having to do 20% down if I don't have to.
Do you have a good mortgage broker?
I do, yeah, I like him.
What does he say?
Well, this is kind of what he said. He said the options are I can refinance into a conventional mortgage and just have a little bit of a higher interest rate. And then I can use the FHA for the next property, or I could refinance into an owner occupied mortgage, but then I have to wait a year to use the FHA.
Right. Is he with a bank or is he with a brokerage firm?
A brokerage firm.
Okay.
So, but that's, see, that's a little clearer now how you said that, right? Is you can either refinance into a conventional product or you can refinance back into an FHA. But if you refinance back into that FHA, that's an FHA requirement, not a lender requirement, right?
Yeah.
So, personally, if you can do it, I'd refinance into the conventional, and so now your hands aren't tied.
Okay.
And then you could just move on, especially if you like the lender, because then you're not changing lenders, right?
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. If it's like a 1 or 2% difference in interest rate, I think it'd be worth it to not have my hands tied, if that makes sense. Because velocity of money, really, like if I can deploy a bunch of cash into another property 1 year sooner, I think that return might be higher.
So is it that much of a spread right now between an FHA and a 30-year?
I don't think it's huge. I think it was only a couple of percentage points. I know the FHA was like 3.5, and I think it might be a little bit higher. Carl might know more, or any of you might know more than that.
That makes sense.
I didn't think, the last time I looked, which was a couple of weeks ago, the spread wasn't that great, up for 100 or 200 basis points. I didn't think it was that much. So,
Yeah, me either.
so it might just be worth it just to do the conventional mortgage.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah.
The other option is to try and do something creative with the seller.
Yep, that's what I was thinking. Seller financing of some sort, or private lending, something like that. Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah, and me, just my own personal experience, and this is my opinion, you're always better off dealing with the seller as opposed to bringing in private equity, because there's a different motivation there between those types of partners, in essence. And that's just my 2 cents from doing a lot of deals. And every deal we ever did, we had partners. It's kind of like getting married. Nobody gets married thinking they're going to get divorced. But the deals we did with seller financing just always seemed to be smoother. And we just had less headaches because the expectation was pretty cut and dry. It was pretty clear. And as long as we kept up with the payments to the second mortgagor, there were no problems.
makes sense.
Are you saying if assuming they have full equity in the house, or if you're doing like you take over their deed?
Well, either or. I mean, I'm just talking about the different kinds of, a one kind of partner. If you're going to do, non-traditional financing, is a private equity person, and another kind is somebody that will hold a second mortgage. My personal opinion is, if I have the choice between the two, all else being equal, I'll work with the person that's willing to hold the second and do the seller financing.
Got it. Yeah, that's very helpful. Well, thank you guys. I think that pretty much solved my problem. I was thinking about that a lot, and I wasn't sure.
Yeah, good. Anybody else have anything else?
I just want to say that I am interested in the networking that Gordon offered, that he's got a lot of networking events.
Yeah, and for sure. I mean, did I hear you correctly? It said you want to get out of that property, that 60-unit property?
Yeah.
Then we should definitely, Mike, how can people get in touch with each other? I forget. Is there a way for us to get in touch with each other?
Well, people put their information in the chat. So I don't know, Deborah, I don't think, did you?
No, I didn't. Where is the chat? Oh, I see it.
Yeah, at the bottom, there's a chat. You could just put your information there. And I put mine there So, you know, what I did was, what I can do is I can send everybody an email with everybody's information, then you have it.
That's fine with me, if you want to
Yeah.
share my information.
Yep.
Did you put your information in there, Carl?
I'm doing it right now, Mike.
Okay, good.
I had one thing. So as also as part of my property, I mean, Chicago has like a lot of older buildings and stuff. So unfortunately, another one of my tenants, not the problem tenant, they got their kid tested for lead and he came back like positive. Then they called the city on me or on the property to get it inspected. And now there's like a ton of like issues, and I've just like applied for like funding through like my tenants, which have been like more than helpful in like helping me out and everything. But I'm wondering if anybody has had any contacts with like the City of Chicago lead department or anything with like lead abatement or anything along those lines.
Did you buy it recently, or did you own it for a while?
No, I bought it in December, and then this has been going on since February, and then I've been trying to like get the application in like for a while now, and now I just like got it in like this past like Friday.
Right. Did they disclose that there was lead in the house?
They did not disclose that there was lead in the house.
Okay. Well, I would, if I were you, not only is the realtor, but also the title company and the attorney, who are all licensed professionals. That's called errors and omission. And that's somebody made an error there. If they didn't, they're obligated by law to disclose if there's lead in the building there. So, you know, that's, and you know, again, the courts are crazy right now with everything that's going on. But if I was caught in that situation, I'd go back and check with my paperwork and make a phone call to the attorney, the title company, and the realtor on that one.
The seller attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I would do though is I would contact your attorney and talk with your attorney and let him know what's going on. Do you still have a relationship with that attorney?
Yeah, I've been talking to him on a somewhat regular basis, not just about that, but also like the potential eviction, cash for keys issue. So, yeah, I've been contacting with him, but don't they have to like knowingly do it?
Well, they're obligated to hand over a piece of property that's buttoned up, and you know, you could get into arm wrestling, but yeah, I would take Mike's advice, call your attorney and say, hey, listen, I want you, and I would be frank with them. I'd say, I want you to go after the title company and the selling agent and the selling attorney, and let him, he's an attorney, let him fight it out, or advise you otherwise. I mean, all I know is this: there's disclosures for a reason, and those people are licensed to protect people that are unlicensed. And I'm assuming that you're not a licensed real estate professional, right?
I'm not.
Yeah, they are. So, you know, even just the threat of that sometimes can get people moving.
So, like, what's been your experience in like your case with that, like, or knowing people? Have they had any like success with it? And like, what's the best that I can hope for out of it? And
that's a good question. I would ask your attorney.
Okay.
You know, but my point is this: if someone's going to come after you and make you, you know, somehow come out of pocket tens of thousands of dollars, or you know, interrupt your business or whatever, I would, as a business person, I would say, whoa, time out a second here. Someone's paying for this because you guys sold me a building full of lead and you didn't disclose it. So if nothing else, I would rock the boat. And you know, who knows what's you know, I mean, shake the bushes, who knows what's going to fall out. But you know, at the end of the day, if they didn't disclose that, whether they were negligent or they, you know, ignorance is not an excuse. I mean, you know, so that's all. I mean, I would, if you have confidence in your attorney, I would just have that conversation and say, listen, this is what I want you to do. You know, I don't want my ass hanging out in the, pardon my French, hanging out in the wind because someone sold me a property and didn't disclose there was lead. And now it comes back and bite me in the rear end. That's bullshit. So
Yeah, their disclosure laws are pretty tough, right? And so you need to go back to your attorney and say, hey, you know, what are we going to do? How do we handle this? Because that kind of leaves you out on the limb right now if there's a issue with lead there.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So,
Okay.
And Mike, I apologize for the foul language. I'm sorry. So I'm sorry.
it's all right, Carl. You're always so abrupt.
Yeah, no, thanks, Carl. Much appreciated.
So what I'll do is I'll send everybody an email so they have everybody's information, and you guys can contact whoever you want and go from there. I really appreciate everybody being on tonight. I think it's a good exchange of information. And this call we have, this is the multifamily call. We do this call every other Monday. And on the other Mondays, we do a property management call. So I have another group called Chicago Property Management Mastermind. So if you are interested in being on the management call also, I'm sorry, I got it backwards. This is the management call. Every other Monday, I have the mastermind for multifamily, and that's multifamily mastermind. So,
What is the difference?
it's been different people, right? So the people on this call have had more of a focus on management, things like you were talking about evictions and how do we deal with rent increases? How are we dealing with not getting paid rents right now? And on the multifamily call, people have been, we've talked more about how do we do our next acquisition? What does that look like? How do we grow our portfolio? Things like that.
Thank you.
And Mike, I just one last thing. For the gentleman who was talking about the lead thing, it's called errors and omissions. So errors and omission is insurance to cover things like errors and omissions. So you might want to just put that bug in your attorney's ear as well. They may not have done it on purpose, but if they omitted something or there was an error, that's why they have insurance for that.
And the title company would have been like liable for that, or the other parties that you mentioned?
Well, title companies are pretty tightly wound, so good luck with that. But I would just talk to your attorney. Just say, what's the path for errors and omission? Because clearly there was an error and omission of this, whether it's done, intentionally, negligently, or inadvertently.
Yep. Okay. Got it.
And Mike, thanks for doing this. It's been a good call.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, guys. Everybody have a great night, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much,
Okay, out
everybody.
here.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.